Well, we're joined from Westminster by David Duguid, who is the Conservative MP for Banff and Buchan, one of Scotland's main fishing constituencies. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Are you a team player, as Dominic Raab calls for, or would you vote down this deal?
I don't think the question is about voting down the deal. The question is about how strongly we feel about the importance fishing is to our constituents, to Scotland as a whole, and to the UK as a whole. And I think the Prime Minister is already aware just how important it is. I think what we're doing just now is just seeking that reassurance that with any talk of an extension, which has just come out in the last few days, that the plan for the United Kingdom to be an independent coastal state as of December 2020 is still the plan.
So you're not a team player then?
It depends what team you're talking about.
Well, Dominic Raab just said, play for the team. And he's calling on you and others to get behind the Prime Minister. You're not willing to do that?
No, that's not what we're saying. I'm behind the Prime Minister. I believe we're all behind the Prime Minister. We would wish the Prime Minister to remember that the fishing communities in the northeast of Scotland and around the UK, in fact, are not to be forgotten about.
Well, what difference would a few months make?
Well, I'm very hopeful that a few months wouldn't make that much difference, because the fact
well, in which case, why make these threats to the Prime Minister?
Let me explain. I haven't made any threats to the Prime Minister, but what I have said is that the current plan, as described in the implementation plan announcement earlier this year, was that we would be taking our place as an independent coastal state with all the powers that entails in December 2020. Now, the council meeting in December 2020 would affect the whole calendar year of 2021. So what I'm going to be doing today is seeking reassurance from the Prime Minister that will still be the case. We'll still be taking our place at the table, negotiating on the same basis as Norway, Iceland and the Faroe Islands, and indeed the rest of the EU, as of December 2020, extension or no extension.
Why is this such an important issue to you and your Scottish Conservative colleagues, given that Scotland voted to remain in the EU, but you and your colleagues are quite happy to go along with Brexit?
Well, there's a couple of things wrong with that statement. One is Scotland didn't vote for Scotland to remain in the EU. It was a UK-wide vote. 62% of people in Scotland voted for the UK to remain in the EU. So it's not an independence vote. But
as a Scottish MP, is it not your duty then to represent the
My duty,
majority?
first and foremost, are to my constituents. My constituents in Banff and Buchan voted 54% leave.
But in terms of the council areas, all of the local authority areas voted to remain.
Yeah, so in the case of Aberdeenshire Council, it takes in Banff and Buchan, West Aberdeenshire and Gordon constituencies. I'm talking about my constituency. I'm the Member of Parliament for Banff and Buchan.
But we've got other members. All of your colleagues are saying that they back the stance that you have just espoused. Many of them will be representing areas that didn't vote the way your constituency did.
Well, I'll quote Ruth Davidson, who campaigned for Remain, and her quote from a few months ago was, "Even the most Remainier of Remainers are a Brexiteer when it comes to fishing." Fergus Ewing, who was in your programme earlier today, has said, and time again, as the SNP has time and time again, that the CFP is not fit for purpose, not for Scottish fishermen. Yet their position of rejoining the EU would take them straight back into the CFP.
What would be the consequence of not going along with Theresa May if she says the only way to get a Brexit deal is to extend the transition period?
Well, like I said earlier, if the extension is only a matter of months and we can still take our place as an independent coastal state in the December of 2020, I don't think that would cause us a big problem. But I very much hope that we're going to come to an agreement before that.
But what would be the consequence of saying to Mrs May, you cannot have this deal?
Well, it wouldn't just be up to us. It would have to go to a vote in Parliament. So
yeah, but if you and your colleagues from Scotland voted against it, you have sufficient numbers to actually stop this deal going ahead.
Well, you're asking me to give you the consequence of a hypothetical situation.
Well, I'm asking you what the consequences are of, in essence, a no-deal scenario. Is what you're arguing for fishermen worth the consequences to the whole country of a no-deal scenario?
We are not arguing for a no-deal scenario.
But that might well be the consequence of your actions, though, mightn't it?
Well, like I said, I don't think it will come to that. I've been assured personally by the Prime Minister, by Michael Gove, the DEFRA Secretary, just in the last week, that that these red lines that the Scottish Conservatives are talking about are very much the same red lines that the government holds.
After Brexit, do you support the call from Fergus Ewing that we heard earlier for the full devolution of the rights of fishermen to the Scottish Parliament and the negotiation of future quotas?
The Scottish Government already have a fairly powerful role to play in current negotiations while the UK is still even a member state of the EU. When it comes to Scottish fisheries, the Cabinet Secretary Fergus Ewing comes front and centre and he leads that part of the negotiation. In the future, post-Brexit, when we're out of the CFP, that relationship between the Scottish Government and the UK Government, I don't see changing, but it will be more powerful because the UK will be an independent coastal state.
Well, the Scottish Government wants it to change. They want to have full control over fisheries going forward. Is that something you could support?
Like I said, I think Fergus Ewing, I think, is a pragmatic minister, and he knows how to work with the UK government. The SNP in general, of course, want all the powers. They're gonna claim some kind of power grab yet again. I just hope that Fergus Ewing and the Scottish Government can be a bit more sensible with the fisheries bill when it comes out than they have been with the agricultural bill, in which they've left Scottish farmers in the dark.
David Duguid, Conservative MP for Banff and Buchan, thank you very much for joining us. It's